Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics and must resist the urge to talk about Dominic Cummings. That's better. So, let's leave that overestimated spad alone a bit and talk about the overarching issue, which is where is the tracing programme so crucial to our pandemic response that Boris Johnson promised would be fully implemented by the end of this week. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, tearing ourselves away from the Cummings story. And apologies if some massive breaking news has hit this afternoon and you were expecting that. But the reason why so many of us are angry at this scandal is because of this overarching issue. It's because we already have the worst death toll in Europe and amongst the worst in the world, but that the consequences for the government's incompetence and warped priorities, because it's not all about incompetence, is only just beginning. I mean, this is normally the day when Boris Johnson would be facing Keir Starmer and others in Prime Minister's questions, but Parliament isn't sitting this week, so Johnson will be facing angry backbenchers today instead. But the overriding issue at the moment is their continuing mishandling of the coronavirus pandemic. It's not just that they were ill prepared. It's not just that they got off to a slow start. Even now, they are still deliberately making a mess of it. Thanks to the government's watering down of its own lockdown measures, which were deliberately communicated in vague terms in the hopes that people would break the rules thinking they could, but the government could deny permitting it later on, so they didn't get the blame, means that we are definitely headed for many more infections than should be the case. And it's all very well, the media, the parts of the media that try to cover for the government, talking about promising results from this treatment or this vaccine. We don't have either yet. And even when we do, it still takes time for uptake to reach the point where we can say we're over this. If indeed that ever happens, we hope it will. We cannot know. There was some interesting data from the Office for National Statistics this week. The number of excess deaths is on the increase. Now you have to be careful not to look at that in isolation, because if you look at like historical figures, there'd be an uptick round about now as well. It's sort of following that trend. But the point is that our excess deaths, based on historical data, is still sky high. Sky high. In France, Spain and Italy, the other large European countries that were badly caught out by the pandemic, their excess deaths has now dropped down to very low levels. So the number of deaths they're seeing around the country is very similar to what it has been historically at round about this time of year. Ours have not dropped down that low. And we have loosened our lockdown rules much more than those other countries, much more. In addition, we do not have the test, trace and isolate system that needs to be in place in order to cope with letting people mingle again. And everyone agrees that this is vital. This isn't just about international bodies saying so, or even our own scientists. Even Boris Johnson was perfectly happy to say in Parliament that it was crucial. He didn't say it was important, he said it was crucial. Important might mean, well, you know, it's important, but there's other things we could do instead. Crucial means, no, you need this. If you don't have this, you don't have the whole overall programme. So where is it? You know, he's already eased lockdown. Where is it? For it to be fully implemented by next Monday, which is what he says it will, it needed to have been rolled out nationally already. Now, from what I can gather, they've only really just started the pilot schemes in the Isle of Wight. Now, for those who are unfamiliar, this is a tiny island of 140,000 people between England and France. And I saw a tweet from someone yesterday whose mother is allegedly from the Isle of Wight, this is unconfirmed of course, saying that they'd lost the app. They've lost a tracing app. How does that even sound? I mean, it certainly sounds like the trials aren't going well. Now, in much more like easy to corroborate reporting, there was another report saying that people were downloading the app on the mainland as well. The trial is supposed to be in the Isle of Wight. People were downloading it on the mainland. And that somehow has knackered the trial on the Isle of Wight. So they were having to do another one. So they've had to instigate another set of trials on the Isle of Wight before rolling the whole thing out nationally. And the thing is as well, even if the trials there were not in chaos, You don't just go from trialling it, something like this on a tiny isolated island, to the full national rollout of a nation of 66 million. I mean, but it's not even like the trial is going smoothly. So the national rollout has no chance. I would say it has no chance by the end of this week, which is when it's supposed to be out there. But, you know, with this government, I would say no chance at any point. I actually will say no chance at any point. Consider their other IT systems. So, you know, they created a new IT system for, work benefits or out of work benefits. Universal credit. Complete disaster. The whole thing still doesn't work years later. They created a new IT system for our courts. That's a complete disaster. Doesn't get reported very often. I mean, I follow a number of people in the legal profession. They report on it on a very regular basis. That, you know, it's an IT system that even years later just keeps crashing. Judges are there, can't get access to the information they need, have to call off the work for that day because the computer systems aren't working. This same government is now trying to use a technological solution, and when we haven't even conducted trials on a tiny little island yet, we're apparently going to have it fully in place for next Monday in the whole country. No. And I'm willing to say with near 100% certainty that based on their track record and based on the way this is going, that when we look back in a year's time, I'm going to bet that this tracing app obviously will not have been working by the 1st of June, but I'm going to suggest it won't have been working at any point. We're actually going to end up getting through this without that app working at any point. Hopefully it'll mean adopting the one that other countries are using. But anyway, what it all means is that come June the 1st, the date that Johnson promised we'd be having our programme fully installed, we won't even have begun rollout. We will not even have begun the rollout, as far as I can tell at the moment. Now, I know this isn't particularly news. We knew that last Wednesday. It was all very well Boris Johnson last Wednesday boasting about this promise. The government announced literally an hour or two later that it's not going to be ready, sorry. But it's not even like we're going to have the bare bones of a system that he will somehow claim to be what he promised, because that's what I thought last Wednesday. I thought the bare bones of a system will be out. It won't actually be working. It won't actually be what he promised, but he'll say it is what he promised. But how are we even going to get that? And our testing has still not increased from the level it was a month ago now. It hasn't actually gone up. The government are still counting a single test as 2 tests. Because, wait for it, because there's a stick that you have to put down your throat and then the other end up your nose. And I'm not kidding. That is how they're counting one test as 2. They're counting it as 2 tests because, well, there's the test down your throat and there's the test up your nose. It's not even the same, just the same person. It's the same stick. It is actually the same test kit, but they're counting it as 2. In the same way that they count a pair of gloves as 2 items of PPE. So, except this one's even more ridiculous. So the level of testing isn't there for those who need it. We don't have the tracing app, which to be effective would not only need to work, which it doesn't, but need to be used by the majority of the population. You know, we need a large majority of the population to actually download and use this app. Now, can you imagine people trusting the government to download an app onto their phone that is reported to be used for stealing personal data? That's why we won't use the app that's been developed by Google and Apple. After the way they mishandled the Cummings crisis? I mean, that's a big ask of people. And it's not even like we're making people wear face masks in close proximity to others. You know, my girlfriend went to the pharmacist yesterday, and the pharmacist there had a face mask, but it wasn't over her face, really. Wasn't covering her nose and mouth. And I saw someone on Twitter describing face mask use that they were observing as being like cartoon characters with the toothache, you know, with the bandage around the head. What's the point of having a mask if you're just going to put it under your chin? And I can understand down there if you're completely out in the open, there's no one else around you and it's a bit uncomfortable, all right. But when you're around people, and it brings me back to teaching in laboratories where, you know, goggles, you know, students instead, they keep trying to put the goggles on the forehead. Oh, I don't like them, I can't see through them. They're see-through. Put your goggles on. And I spend most practicals just going, goggles, 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 all the time. Going to be like that in public. Going to be pointing at people. What, you put your face mask on? No one's putting the face mask on. And there's no PMQs today because MPs decided that they should still have their May break for reasons best known to themselves. What it's supposed to be is so that they can go back to their constituencies and do some work there. Sometimes MPs also, they're allowed a holiday as well. Some of them will use it as an actual holiday as well. But there's nowhere to go. And they're already at home anyway, doing everything remotely. What was the point of a week's break? But next Wednesday there will be a PMQs. There will be a Prime Minister's Questions. I would imagine Keir Starmer will hardly know where to begin. But there it is. Anyway, I'm sure we're going to be back onto Cummings before long, but we also mustn't forget what the overarching reason for our fury at Cummings' behaviour is, and it is the death toll that is going to ensue from that sort of mentality. But I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.